She boarded the train, believing she knew exactly where she was going, a reserved seat, a clear plan, a carefully chosen destination. What Kira didn't know, couldn't have known, was that one small mistake would carry her far from her intended path, and directly into a world she never imagined finding. The creative globe presents. Across continents and cultures, creativity takes countless forms. Each story follows a maker, an artist, or a dreamer on a journey shaped by craft, connection, and discovery. This is the creative globe. Chapter 1. The Dream of Japan. Kira had always dreamed of Japan, not just of the cities or temples, but of the hands that made things there. The artisans, the crafters, the quiet mastery passed from generation to generation. And now, here she was. She sat in a compact taxi leaving Haneda Airport, gripping her knitting bag as the driver navigated Tokyo's traffic with calm precision. On the left side of the road, she reminded herself. She considered pulling out her needles, but the city demanded her attention. Streets unfurled in layers, glass towers beside narrow alleys, glowing vending machines humming softly even in daylight, shop curtains fluttering as people passed. Even movement felt deliberate, measured, considerate of shared space. Japan, she realized, had rules, not written ones, but practiced ones. Her travel advisor had suggested a day or two to become adjusted to the great time difference from Redding, California, to Japan. "And don't forget to move the date forward," he'd said. "It will be tomorrow in Tokyo." Chapter 2. Quiet hospitality. Her hotel welcomed her with deep bows and warm efficiency. The lobby gleamed. Stone floors polished to a soft shine. Flower arrangements changed daily, everything placed with intention. The warm, welcoming hospitality of the lovely hotel put her at ease, and she was doubly grateful that they spoke perfectly in her language. I was a little worried at the reception desk when a flow of Japanese conversation was directed at me, she told her father on her first call home since her arrival. Kira was third-generation Japanese, but had never, to her dismay, spoken her ancestors' language. "But father, the people here are wonderful. They speak perfect English, so I should be fine getting around here." When the call ended, Kira was happy to have spoken with her father, soothing his concerns. Even for him, Japan was impossibly far away, both in distance and in culture. The concierge, an older and quite knowledgeable man, kindly suggested several points of interest in this burgeoning city. He focused on her request to see various arts and crafts, along with the well-renowned landmarks. Kira's enthusiasm peaked just before the inevitable effect of jet lag prevailed. In spite of all the excitement, she found herself propelled to the warm bed in her room. She collapsed, fully clothed, her knitting bag beside her, and succumbed to the inescapable pull of slumber. Chapter 3. Tea, thread, and belonging. A knock on the door brought Kira to full wakefulness. Oh heavens! What have I missed? The sky outside her window showed sunset, or was that sunrise? She wasn't sure until she checked her phone. The knock was repeated. A pleasant-looking young woman bowed several times and attempted, in heavily accented English, "You wish to join other ladies in lounge for tea?" What a surprise. It sounded like a terrific idea. The thoughtful concierge must have suggested this. The room was small and intimate, arranged with low tables and chairs. This evening, knitting seemed to be the focus, though other handcrafts were present. The atmosphere glowed with quiet concentration. Kira hesitated, feeling momentarily invisible. Then she remembered what she'd already learned. She paused, bowed politely, and waited. Smiles appeared immediately. Small bows returned. A chair was offered. She opened her knitting bag and brought out the project she had been eager to work on. The sock pattern required bobbins wound in coral hues, intertwined into a soft floral motif. Appreciation passed gently around the room. As though in a rehearsed process, each of them gave a small presentation in sequence around the room of their own distinctive projects. One woman was making a cord from silk ribbon in colours of green and gold. "Kumihimo," she said in a one-word explanation. Kira watched the silk ribbons crossing and looping over a wooden stand in hypnotic rhythm. The cord in the centre emerged tight and luminous, as though woven from patience itself. Kira's eyes followed a trail around the room when the next two women lifted their unique embroidery for her to see. The silken stitches were so perfectly aligned. The motifs they depicted seemed to glow with a life of their own. The workmanship of this group was extraordinary. She wondered at how many more artistic gatherings might be taking place just in this city. This was amazing. The next exhibit was something completely new to Kira's eyes. The next lady shyly presented in her hand a ball that was being carefully wrapped in threads that were winding themselves into complex geometrical designs using various coloration to enhance the globe. A work of art indeed. Kira was fascinated. Temari. The lady gave Kira a bow, which she immediately returned, bowing even more deeply. Before more artistic presentations could be made, a cart carrying a tea service, along with several small bites of wagashi, arrived. This was not a casually formed knitting circle. This was a carefully orchestrated gathering, and Kira felt beyond fortunate to have been invited. Her guess was that the kind concierge had much to do with this opportunity. Chapter 4. The Current of the City. In the next 2 days, Kira saw as many of the highlights of Tokyo as possible, leaving her with the feeling that it was imperative that she returned to this amazing city to see so much more. The city tour was the best way to understand the layout of downtown, including frequent peeks beyond the walls of the Imperial Palace in the heart of the city. Kira found herself ticking off the list of suggested tourist highlights recommended to her by the hotel. The Meiji Shrine with the nearby Harajuku Park, the famous Tokyo Tower, the lovely Shinjuku Garden. She was anxious to experience the famous fish market as well as the geisha district as her day rolled into one exquisite experience after another. And in the end, quietly participating in a kimono tea ceremony where cups were turned just so and silence spoke louder than words. It felt like a dream. Until Tokyo Station. Kira would never forget the masses of crowds at the busy central railroad hub for the entire country, the Tokyo Station. There were masses of people making their way past platform signs, shops of all kinds, and more people. It was a living, breathing mass of humanity, drifting like schools of fish towards their destinations. Drawn into the current, Kira was swept up in the flow. Her destination, the famous bullet train. With only a small wheeled suitcase and her backpack, she appeared to be no different than any native resident of Japan. She garnered very little attention and was swept along with the crowd. It appeared to her that it was leading her to the track of her destination, and she moved with confidence. It was a calming atmosphere to see other passengers, organizing their belongings to settle in for the scenic trip from Tokyo to Kyoto. Snuggling into the unreserved seat was not exactly what she expected, but having a seat next to the window was gratifying. Even with the bullet's great speed, it will be lovely to enjoy the scenery, she thought. It was time to open her bag to bring out her knitting. It was a comfort, her attention, quickly focused on the next phase and the complex rows of her knitting project. Between watching the rolling landscape and passing small, tidy villages, Kira continued her handwork. It wasn't long before Kira sensed that something wasn't quite right, but what it was escaped her. She continued her knitting, attempting to check her pattern directions. But something was definitely wrong. If the train was going in the direction of Kyoto, shouldn't the sun be on the left of the train in the morning? Chapter 5. The Wrong Direction. A knitting needle dropped from Kira's lap, and immediately the adjacent passengers reacted to assist her in reclaiming it. There was much commentary in Japanese and obvious appreciation of her work. Kira thanked them for their courtesy and helpfulness, but no needle was found. "Are you looking for this?" came a voice in English from the seat directly in back of her. At first startled, she turned around to see a young man who appeared, like herself, to be Japanese. "Thank you," she said gratefully. "And you're the first person I've heard speak English for a while. I'm afraid I never learned the Japanese language." "Again, thank you." Kira turned her attention to reclaiming the lost stitches back to the errant needle. A moment later, the stranger was standing in the aisle. "May I join you?" the young man said. "Of course. But this seat," she gestured to the place beside her, "seems to be taken." The old man, sitting next to her, appeared to be ignorant of their discussion until the helpful stranger commenced a dialogue in Japanese with him, and they swapped seats. "My name is Hinata, but you can call me Hunt," he said with a small bow as he sat down. "Kira," she said with a smile, "I see you're working on part of a complicated knitting piece. Is this your own pattern?" "Well," she replied, flattered by the casual comment, "it's only partly my pattern. I took the idea of using a textured colour work that I saw on a sweater and applied it to the top part of stockings. I think it works pretty well." "Very nice," he concurred. She resumed knitting briefly when she asked, "How is it that you speak English so well?" 3 years at UCLA, he answered. "I majored in arts and art history. I've always had an interest in the handmade crafts." Kira smiled, thinking, now there's a man after my own heart. She inquired, "And how did that come about?" She was interested in his comment regarding crafts. "Well," he reflected, "my family, all the way back to my ancestors, were craft people. Their work ranged from plant fibers to astonishing works of art. They were immersed in creativity." Kira couldn't help but admire his enthusiasm. "That's why I'm going to Kyoto, to see as much as I can of the arts and crafts." "And when will that be?" he asked. A pause, and then Kira looked out the window at a passing farm field. For the second time, she took a note of the sun, now risen to her, right. Tentatively, she asked, "We're heading west, aren't we?" His eyes betrayed his surprise. "Well, no." Chapter 6. A Gentle Detour. Kira nearly collapsed with a sudden realization. "This isn't the bullet train going to Kyoto, is it?" Well," he said for the second time. She fought the tears that came to her eyes. "We're not going to Kyoto." "I'm afraid not. We're heading for Fukushima." "Good God, no. This can't be." She was standing at her seat now, and in all appearances seemed to be about to leave the train. "I don't understand." Hunt was mystified. "I've got to get off. I'm going the wrong way. I'm going to Kyoto. I'm supposed to be on the bullet." "Please sit down," he said soothingly. Wanting to help her sort out her problem, he asked, "Did you have hotel reservations in Kyoto?" "Of course I had reservations," she barked angrily, and then despairingly added, "I'm sorry, Hunt, I just don't know what to do." "May I make a suggestion?" he said. "Of course," she answered. "Okay, You wanted to experience some of the crafts of Japan, right? He asked tentatively. That's what I'm here for, she responded. He then smiled and said, well, some of the finest pieces of art are created not necessarily in the largest cities like Kyoto, but in the outlying areas throughout Japan. At my family's home outside of Marumori, we had a history of crafting. Perhaps you would benefit from a visit there. It took some time before Kira responded, that might be the best idea ever. Eventually, she was relaxed and smiling as Hunt expounded on the beauty and possibilities of a visit to his family's home. Chapter 7. Arrival in Fukushima. The train slowed with a gentle sigh, easing itself into Fukushima station as though it understood the significance of arrival. Kira leaned forward, peering out the window. The station was expansive yet calm, wide platforms framed by clean lines of pale stone and steel. Light poured in through tall glass panels, illuminating travelers moving with quiet purpose. There was none of Tokyo's frantic urgency here. Instead, the air felt measured, respectful, almost welcoming. As the doors opened, a soft chime sounded, and people stepped onto the platform in orderly waves. This is Fukushima, Hunt said quietly, standing beside her. It's a crossroads for many. Travelers, families, farmers, artists. Kira stepped onto the platform and felt something unexpected settle in her chest. Relief. Waiting near the exit stood Hunt's family. His father with a warm, reserved smile. His mother, elegant and kind-eyed. And a younger cousin who bowed deeply, then waved with barely contained excitement. Introductions were exchanged with gentle bows and soft laughter, and soon Kira found herself seated in a tidy car, her knitting bag tucked safely at her feet as they pulled away from the station. The city thinned quickly. Concrete gave way to open land, broad fields stretching toward distant hills, their greens layered like brushstrokes. Rows of rice paddies mirrored the sky, while farmhouses sat nestled among trees. The road curved lazily, offering glimpses of rivers, vegetable plots, and small shrines tucked into the landscape. It's beautiful, Kira said, almost to herself. Hunt smiled. Marumori is quieter than most places people visit, but creativity thrives in quiet. As they entered the town, it felt intimate and lived in. Small shops, bicycles leaned against fences, children walking home with school bags swinging. Then the road turned again, narrowing, climbing gently toward the countryside. Ahead, a wide wooden gate appeared. Beyond it, a long, carefully tended driveway unfolded, lined with flowering shrubs, sculpted rocks, and exquisite bonsai trees placed with deliberate harmony. The gravel crunched softly beneath the tires as they passed through. Kira's breath caught. At the end of the drive stood a medium-sized home, simple and dignified. Surrounding it, spread across the land like a living circle, were multiple outbuildings, some small, some expansive, each humming with quiet industry. This, Hunt said as the car stopped, is home. Chapter 8. The Artisan Grounds. Kira stepped out of the car and simply stood still. The property felt alive. Each outbuilding had its own rhythm. Soft tapping of wood, the low hum of a kiln, the rustle of reeds being woven. Artisans moved with practiced grace, hands busy, faces peaceful. The scent of clay, wood shavings, and tea leaves drifted through the air. It's extraordinary, Kira said, turning slowly. I've never seen anything like this. Hunt nodded. It has grown since the time of my ancestors. We call it Takumi no Sato, the village of artisans. She set her knitting bag gently on a bench, knowing instinctively that her hands were meant to be open, not occupied. They began their walk. The first workshop was open to the breeze. Inside, an elderly man sat surrounded by coils of bamboo and river reeds. His fingers moved with quiet certainty, weaving strength and beauty into form. "This is Mr. Saito," Hunt said. Mr. Saito smiled warmly at Kira and held up a basket, tight, symmetrical, flawless. "Every basket begins by listening to the material," he said slowly. "If you force it, it breaks." Kira nodded, understanding instantly. "It's the same with yarn," she replied. "You learn its temperament before you design." Mr. Saito's smile deepened. Next, they entered a studio warmed by the glow of a kiln. Shelves held bowls and cups in muted earth tones, their surfaces alive with subtle textures. The potter, a woman with clay-dusted hands, demonstrated how pressure alone could change the entire form. "Balance," she explained, "not perfection." Kira watched, mesmerized. Hunt moved easily between languages, translating patiently, occasionally adding context only a local could provide. As Hunt translated, Kira realized how often the artisans spoke of patience, tension, and listening to materials. The same language knitters used without realizing it. The third building smelled richly of cedar. Inside, carved panels leaned against the walls. Mountains, cranes, waves. The carver showed Kira how a single line could suggest motion, how restraint made meaning stronger. By the time they reached the communal tea space, Kira felt dizzy with inspiration. Low tables waited beneath open beams. Tea was poured, light, fragrant, and served with delicate cookies flavored with sesame and yuzu. "This place feeds the hands and the spirit," Kira said softly. Hunt watched her carefully. "That is its purpose." They continued on. 4 more workshops where artisans worked side by side, producing fine goods destined for high-end shops. There was laughter, concentration, shared tools, shared silence. Hours passed unnoticed. Chapter 9. The Heart of the Home. It wasn't until the light began to soften that Kira realized how much time had passed. "I can't believe it's been hours," she said, smiling, overwhelmed. "I don't want it to end." Hunt led her to the main house. At the entrance, shoes were removed, slippers offered. The interior was serene. Tatami mats, paper screens, low light filtering through linen curtains. The home felt like an exhale. Hunt's mother appeared, bowing gently. "Welcome," she said warmly in broken English. "Please join us for dinner." The meal was simple and heartfelt. Steamed rice, miso soup, grilled fish, pickled vegetables, and a shared platter of seasonal greens. As they ate, Hunt's father spoke of the family's responsibility. "We protect our artisans," he said. "They are paid fairly. Their work belongs to them. We simply provide the space and care." Kira felt something tighten in her chest. After dinner, she brought out her knitting. The room fell quiet. "This is beautiful," Hunt's mother whispered, tracing the pattern with her eyes. "Will you teach me?" For the next hour, Kira guided her hands, casting on, forming stitches, laughing gently at mistakes. Teaching stitches felt like sharing a story, slowly, carefully, with opportunity for new adventure. When she finally retired to the guest room, sliding doors closing softly behind her, gratitude washed over her completely. She had never felt so welcome. Chapter 10. Threads that Remain. That night, she knelt briefly on the tatami, appreciating its faint, grassy scent, then lowered herself onto the futon. The bedding was firm but welcoming, cradling her without excess. As she pulled the light quilt over her shoulders, the quiet of the house settled around her like a held breath. She had come to Japan seeking craft. She had found community. As sleep claimed her, one thought lingered gently in her mind. Some journeys don't correct mistakes. They reveal destinations you never knew you were meant to reach. And somewhere beyond Marumori, more threads were waiting to be gathered.